Hello, this is a demonstration of Cisco SecureX. Cisco SecureX is designed to be simple, it's designed to provide visibility as well as efficiency of workflow operations for security incident response and management. So I'm going to show you several parts today. I'm going to show you how we can use SecureX and how it'll help you to simplify incident response. So you can see here, here's the main SecureX dashboard as I logged in. Then on the left-hand side, SecureX can pull in lots of data from the network, meaning that SecureX by itself doesn't really provide much value. The more data you provide to SecureX, the better off SecureX will be. Okay, so that means on the left-hand side, there's an application and integration module where I can pull in lots of security information from Cisco components as well as third parties. So you can see here, there's AMP for Endpoints, there's Cisco Orchestration, there's Firepower Management Center, Stealthwatch, Threat Grid, Umbrella, etc., as well as third parties like VirusTotal and Abuse IP and Google's Chronicles and Gigamon, Have I Been Pwned, etc. So lots of data you can feed into this thing. And integration is quite simple. That means that if I go to the Integration tab, and you can see here, I've already integrated AMP for Endpoint as an example. I click on Edit, and all I had to do was put in the URL for my AMP instance, the AMP ID, my client ID, as well as my API key, and that's it, and follow instructions. And same thing with any other third party like VirusTotal. So I had a VirusTotal account, so I went ahead and cut and paste my API key from my VirusTotal account and then paste it into SecureX, and now SecureX can pull VirusTotal for threat lookup. And same thing applies to many other modules that are available. As I mentioned earlier, it's the same process of grabbing API keys and maybe configure some relay modules. Okay, let's go back to the main dashboard. Once I have all these integration modules that I wanted integrated into SecureX, I can build a dashboard, and you can see there's multiple dashboards. Here's a sample one of JELIN dashboard, and I have just lots of panels configured. You can see I can drag and drop these panels or move it around, delete them, shrink them if I needed to. So you can really customize it for your own preference, for your specific role. But for my demonstration today, I want to focus on visibility. And that visibility dashboard includes, if I customize this, I can see there's a bunch of integrations that I configured, and there's a bunch of data that I can put into my dashboard, but I don't want to see everything because it's overwhelming. So I just want to focus on visibility so I can see Stealthwatch, so I configure Stealthwatch. Then if I expand Stealthwatch, there's simply a bunch of checkboxes that I enable for data that I want to see. So it's quite simple. And then I also enabled Threat Grid as well as Umbrella. Okay, and then so here's the main dashboard of lots of data that I'm retrieving from Stealthwatch, from Threat Grid in terms of hosts on my network. So lots of data. But for now, for this demo, I want to show you how I investigate data from Stealthwatch for visibility's sake here. So here's an alarm category with lots of events generated by Stealthwatch. I'm interested in looking at a category called data hoarding. So let me go ahead and click on data hoarding, and now it'll cross-launch me into Stealthwatch Management Console. Right, so within SecureX, I cross-launch into Stealthwatch Management Console, and then within my console, I can see, well, what is happening on my network. So here's one for data hoarding for 914. So if I drill into 914 here, for data hoarding, I can see there are multiple hosts in my lab network. That's part of data hoarding. And here's a specific host that I know about. So I'm just going to click on that host to see what's happening. And then within that host, I can see that that host is talking to a development server, as well as a bunch of other countries around the world here. So it's quite suspicious. And now I'm going to drill deeper into the flows for that host. And I'll expand this out to the last 10 minutes or so I can widen my scope for that host. Okay, so now you can see that there's a bunch of flows for that specific host. And the first one off the top, I can see that that host, the user identity is Jerry on the Jerry VPN machine on Windows 10. Firefox is most likely it's a browser. That's the process that kicked off this flow. And then here's the hash associated with this process. I'm going to copy that for investigation's sake later on. It's a TCP and it's downloading nearly a gigabyte of data. So that's a lot of data. So we'll have to see what is happening here. Now, at the same time, you're asking, well, where did all this information come from? Because net flow is just L3, L4, a little bit of L5 information, right? It's the 5-tuple information about a flow. Well, this information about identity, process ID, parent process ID, as well as the hash value, all came from the Anyconnect NVM module, which is the Network Visibility Module. It's part of Anyconnect that reported to the Stealthwatch Endpoint Concentrator, and that correlated along with NetFlow information and get all correlated by Stealthwatch and gets rolled up to SecureX to help you with the investigation. So there's a lot of details here that it was presented up to SecureX. All right, let's go back to my, so now we know there's a flow here. Let's go back to SecureX console to see, well, what can we do with that flow information? So I'm going to go ahead and open a thing called Casebook. And Casebook is a tool within SecureX, the blue ribbon here. And this allows me to track my activities, right, and can record data. So I open up a case locally called Suspicious Downloads, and it's owned by me. And I'm going to go ahead and cut and paste that hash value into the observable column here. And observable column, again, it's just a way for me to record what I'm tracking along the way here. And now I'm going to write a little bit of notes about what I'm seeing here. To say it's investigating high data flow for user. Okay, so I'm just going to write some notes so others know what I'm doing here later on for documentation's sake. Now, with this information, with this observable, I'm going to go cross-launch into Threat Response, which is, in short, I'll call CTR. And Threat Response, again, I'm launching from SecureX, so it's keeping me in the workflow. And now Threat Response, it's correlating data based on the hash value that it collected from the network. And Threat Response is telling me that hash value that I included is actually cling. It's a green color, so that's good. It's very easily to decipher. And it's telling me it's agreeing, so I really have nothing to worry about here. Okay, and there's one target on my network that it saw for that hash value. So on the left-hand side, on the relationship graph here, you can see that I'll move it up a little bit. I'll move some of these devices around. Really, you can see the process for that the hash that was downloaded. It came from Firefox browser, and so it's clean. At the same time, I notice it's going to my Windows 10 machine. Okay, so that's fine. And then also there's a red thing shown here. That's a red hash value. That means along with that hash cling value, it also downloaded malware because it's red and it's deemed malicious. So I want to investigate what is that malware code is. So now I'm going to take that hash value, add it to my casebook, right? Add it to my notes. So I've added to the casebook. And at the same time, I'm going to copy it and I'll investigate up here in Threat Response to see what that piece of code is. Why is it malicious? Is it really malicious? How widespread it is, and any other information I can gather. And here immediately you can see here that observable that I put in there for the malicious code came back and it says AMP file reputation told me it's bad, it's malicious. So that's I'm going to get it off my network. Same thing with VirusTotal, right? I had a third-party integration to VirusTotal, and even VirusTotal is telling me that it's malicious. And ClamAV within VirusTotal is telling me it's malicious. And there's many other tools within VirusTotal all convicted that bad piece of code. So I got to get it off my network. And if I want to get a little bit more information about that observable, here's the description that it was detected. It looks like it's something called poison ivy. So it's just a name, but again, it's bad code. I got to get it off my network. So without doing any further investigation, I'm simply going to go to that bad piece of code and do the drop down here. And there's several actions I can take. I can do more investigation in Threat Grid, Umbrella, but for now, I'm simply going to add it to my custom detection list. I click on this, it gets added to my custom detection list. Now, everything on the network that has AMP protecting it, it's immediately protected. That means all the AMP for endpoint clients are protected, AMP for email, AMP for networks, all devices. As it sees this bad piece of code, it will block it and stop it right away. So my network is protected instantly globally. Now, what's happening back in my casebook here? So assuming that I blocked it, it's on my network, it's off my network. Now I can go back into SecureX, into the, let me go back to here, and here we go, my ribbon here. You can see here I added a second SHA value from Threat Response, so it's in here. It's got a little red skull for that second hash value. It's bad. So now I'm really just going to say I'll add some 4 notes that bad code found, blocked in AMP. Okay, so I'm going to save this and documentation, and now I'm going to link it to an incident so that if I need to track this further or have others investigate later, they can all know. So I'm going to link this to an incident so others would know, and I'm going to link it to another case I was open earlier called suspicious VPN downloads. Okay, so I linked it, and if I go to the icon here for incident management, and you can see here that the suspicious downloads right here, there's a reference, a suspicious download. This is the casebook logs that I created earlier. And then I can assign other people. I can assign my coworker Tom to here. So now when Tom logs into work, and he can get access to this specific incident, and then he can further track this and investigate if need to for later on. Okay? All right, but since I've cleaned up this case, I'm going to go to the case and hit close for now and close this case so no further action needs to be taken there. All right, so hopefully this gives you a good overview of SecureX. It shows you how simple it is because integrating data is just simply adding API keys. That's simple. And also visibility, because I configure the different dashboards, big or small. And for me, I looked at visibility, so I have a visibility workflow that started with Stealthwatch. It took in Anyconnect information, and it helped me correlate it, and I can pivot over to Stealthwatch. I pivot over to a Threat Response, and all within a single workflow. So it really helped me to be efficient in my investigation process. So simplicity, visibility, and efficiency, those 3 elements are the key here behind SecureX. Hopefully you enjoy the demo, and next I'm going to go into the orchestration tool to show you the Action Orchestrator behind SecureX.